Hey, what's up, guys? We got a brand new video. It says Special Forces assault a Russian oil rig, body cam footage. This is from a channel we have not seen, or I really know nothing about. It's called Jeremiah. I'll link the channel in the description below, like I do with every video we react to. But it looked like a cool video, so I'm hoping it is going to be good. Real quick, let me introduce myself for the new people. My name is Saxon. I go by Vegas here in Ukraine. I joined the International Legion for the defense of Ukraine in January of 2023. I'm still in Ukraine. I'm no longer in the Legion. I'm working with a team that's connected to the brigade Hatia or Katya. If you are interested in coming to Ukraine, you've already got your mind set on it. I'm not here to recruit anybody. I'm not here to try to persuade you and tell you it's amazing out here, because the truth is most people get hurt or die if they end up on the front line. Okay, but if you've already made that decision to come and you're coming here to join the International Legion, check out the link below. Check out Hatia, the brigade I'm working with. They are a direct Ukrainian armed forces unit element, and there's a lot of changes going on in the Legion right now. So I implore you to check this out before you jump straight into the Legion. Okay, just trust me on this one. So something I wanted to mention real quick, because I've been seeing it a lot. I don't get into politics very often, but frankly, this conflict here in Ukraine, this war, this invasion, is 100% dominated and controlled by largely Western politics. With that said, I'm a registered Republican. Okay, if you didn't know that, I felt like it was maybe a little obvious. I'm a registered Republican. I was born in Nevada and I lived in Texas. I was a firefighter and an EMT before I came here to Ukraine. So generally, I have more conservative beliefs, and I tend to side on the more right leaning policies. But something that I've been seeing in a lot of comments all over, really, especially on YouTube, on different news outlet channels, is people saying, "Stop sending our money to Ukraine. Stop sending our taxpayer dollars to Ukraine." Okay, so I've got to say something about this, because that shit is irritating as hell to see, especially on like something like Fox News, which is my preferred news outlet. Frankly, I know it's biased, but that's where I go, and I see all these comments about stop sending our money overseas. Okay, so let me address that for anybody who gives a shit about listening to my opinion here. Deep breath, all right? Okay. First of all, when it comes to the Ukraine conflict, right? The United States have been sending huge packages of supplies and money and resources to Ukraine. There's no secret in that. Now, I think there's this misinterpretation, this misconception that if we stopped sending resources and supplies and stopped supporting Ukraine tomorrow, for example, all of this funding would be pumped straight into all the right avenues in the United States of America, into the right into the right resources and pathways to help, homelessness and homeless veterans and the VA and all these issues that really matter to Americans. There's this misconception that if we cut off funding from Ukraine, all of these funds would be directed straight to these issues in the US. That's not the case, okay? Also, I mean, before I move on from that, these issues within the United States, which I 100% support, America first, I always will. I'm an American through and through. These issues, as far as homelessness and veterans needing more support, I completely agree with. But it's going to take a much deeper legislative approach to fixing these problems. Just stopping support of Ukraine will not fix these problems. So that black and white mentality that I see in a lot of these comment sections, is ignorant. Stop that, please. Okay. Aside from that, let me get back on track here. When we're talking about the United States of America in general, this idea that the US can only focus on one global event, one global situation at a time, is ridiculous. The United States of America is one of the richest, if not the richest country in the entire world. No matter how much debt we may have, they're still incredibly wealthy. The thought that we cannot fix problems in the United States of America while supporting an innocent sovereign nation from getting full-scale invaded, the idea that the U.S. can't do both of these at the same time, once again, is ignorant. It's ridiculous. It's black and white thinking. It's polarized, right? Which is arguably the issue in politics in the U.S. in general. Just everything is so polarized. There's very little middle ground these days. But there's an answer to being able to help the innocent people in Ukraine and stopping evil from spreading like fucking Putin and Russia. There's a middle ground between helping this and also solving the problems in the United States of America. I'm hoping Trump has some answers for this stuff. And I guess we'll see. It sounds like with some of the stuff I've been seeing with Trump, not regarding Ukraine, but regarding some of his policies in the United States, especially on illegal immigration. It sounds like he's got a good plan for some stuff. So I'm excited about that. But it's just something I wanted to address, man, because there's the amount of comments I see about this stuff is absolutely it's absurd, which I can't blame these people. You know, part of me wants to blame the people because they're not educating themselves enough, right? About the topic, about government, about politics in general. The fact that they think that stopping funding to Ukraine is going to solve all their problems in the U.S., that right there, that takes some, you got to educate yourself, okay, if you think that's reality. But also, it's all the media. It's all the super, super, super biased media that they watch day in and day out that is teaching them this kind of stuff. So I can't blame them too much. I wanted to address that. I'll shut up now. Let's watch these special forces assault this oil rig.
The Ukrainian Military Intelligence Agency just released over 15 minutes of the craziest combat footage I have ever seen. The footage shows Ukrainian special forces raiding multiple Russian-controlled oil rigs out in the Black Sea. I'm telling you guys, this footage is straight out of a Call of Duty mission. Not only is there official footage from the Ukrainian intelligence community, but I also found some unedited footage leaked by one of the Ukrainian special operators who was on the mission. But while we're on the subject of World War III, let me tell you about today's video sponsor, Conflict of Nations. Conflict of Nations is a free-to-lead in a variety of different strategies. Choose to favorite, which means if I'm big thank you and thoroughly good, let's forces began the video. September 2023, Ukrainian Special Forces began an incredibly dangerous 2-day-long raid on 2 separate Russian-controlled oil rigs located in the northwest part of the Black Sea. The rigs, nicknamed the Boyko Towers, are 2 gas and oil drilling platforms, B312 and B319. The rigs were originally Ukrainian, but they were captured by Russia back in 2014.
So from my understanding, Ukraine has an almost non-existent navy, or a very, very, very small one. So these kinds of operations are really cool to me because you see I'm just operating with very little resources, and usually they're relatively successful, especially when we're talking about those those aquatic drones that they use, those little boat drones, just taking out freaking main battleships and shit. That's so cool.
Russia has used them to assert military control over Ukraine's southern coast since the beginning of the invasion. In 2022, the Russians equipped the platforms with electronic reconnaissance and combat equipment. This enabled the Russian military to monitor the surface, air, and underwater space in the northwestern part of the sea. They also stored fuel and ammunition for helicopters so they could use them as helicopter refueling stations when needed. The rigs were also equipped with a type of radar tower which significantly increased the range of Russian drones in the area. If Ukraine could retake the platforms, they could serve as forward deployment bases, helicopter landing sites, and a perfect place to position long-range missile systems. And most importantly, they would no longer be in Russian control. And so, the Ukrainian Special Operations community got to work on a game plan to retake the rigs. The plan was to use rigid-hull inflatable boats to reach the platforms. The operators would then maneuver the boats underneath the rigs and use ladders to climb up. And despite the armed hostile forces on the rigs, climbing the ladders would prove to be the most dangerous part of the mission. When the day finally came to put this plan into action, the weather was stormy and the water was much rougher than they had anticipated. Once they were under the platforms, the team had a...
So if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody with experience, these patches right here are GUR, G-U-R. These are, the GUR is basically, like they said, the Special Operations Forces of Ukraine. But they're pretty elite units if we're talking about GUR actual, right? There's also International Legion GUR, which is supposed to be like a higher speed version of like the Legion I was in. Basically, I was a trench monkey, right? Legion GUR was supposed to be like the assaulting guys. But this looks like GUR actual, which is straight up Ukrainian Special Forces.
Very difficult time keeping the boat steady, so the operators had to climb the long ladder with the boat moving beneath them and waves crashing into them. In the chaos, one of the operators was knocked overboard by a large wave, disappearing into the dark water. With multiple operators still on the ladder and the boat crews in a very bad, unsafe position underneath the oil rigs, they had no choice but to continue on with the mission and leave the man in the water behind. Fortunately for the operators climbing...
I mean, it's worth mentioning the recent 2 Navy SEALs who fell off the side of a ship during some kind of a I don't know, it's probably classified mission, but some kind of mission where the 2 Navy SEALs fell off. Actually, I believe it was one that fell off and another one went in to try to grab him, and they disappeared into the ocean. These are arguably the best swimmers in the entire world, U.S. Navy SEALs, with the exception of maybe, some Olympic athletes. But SEALs are drilled and drilled and drilled to be absolute savages in the water, right? I mean, they drown them in training. And so that kind of goes to show how difficult it is to survive something like that. You're falling in, especially at night, you fall into the middle of the ocean in full kit. I mean, that might as well be hot lava, dude. The second you fall in that, you're done.
Onto the oil rigs, there were very few armed enemy soldiers on board. However, the rigs were absolutely massive and built like a literal maze, so it took a very long time for the teams to get inside and fully clear the structure. Meanwhile, the men on the boats had a big problem of their own. As you can see in the footage, a Russian Su-30 fighter jet came out of nowhere and started engaging the Ukrainian boats. The boat crews frantically tried to defend themselves from the jet for several minutes.
Okay, I've never seen people shoot small arms at a fighter jet, with the exception of like some Taliban shit. Maybe they know something I don't, or maybe the jet's a lot lower than in real life than it appears on camera, but I can't imagine that being entirely effective. Well, that's lower.
Російський літак намагається уразити наші катери гарматним та ракетним вогнем. Наші бійці відкривають вогонь у відповідь з усього наявного озброєння.
Until one operator was able to lock onto the jet with a shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missile, forcing the jet to retreat. And while the boat crews were dealing with the fighter jet, the operators on the rigs were slowly and methodically clearing every nook and cranny of the rigs. They encountered multiple armed Russian soldiers who had barricaded themselves inside the rigs, but the operators were able to take care of them without suffering any casualties. And once the rigs were fully secured, the mission quickly changed from a direct action assault mission to a search and rescue to find the operator who fell off the ladder at the start of the mission. And after searching for 14 hours, the operator was spotted by a drone and rescued.
No.
Thankfully, operators wear personal flotation devices on these types of missions, and that's the only reason he survived 14 hours in rough waters. And honestly, guys,
September in the Black Sea, 14 hours. Dude, people, depending on the temperature of the water, people struggle to survive 30 minutes in the ocean. That's crazy, dude. Holy shit, that's very cool. And I also didn't know about the flotation devices. I did not know about that.
even with there being several thermal drones in the air looking for him, it is a miracle they found this dude alive. But overall, the mission was a huge success. The Ukrainians suffered no casualties, though there were certainly some close calls, and we don't know exactly how many Russian soldiers were eliminated during the raid. The official report says an undisclosed number.
Yeah, that's GER. Special Forces. Or the, it's the intelligence.
Of Russian soldiers were eliminated.
Same.
But most
Same thing.
importantly, Ukraine can and is using the platforms for military purposes, and Russia isn't. And if you guys want to see the raw, uncensored combat footage that was too graphic to show on YouTube, I'll have a link to my Patreon in the description below. And don't forget to check out Conflict of Nations, the free-to-play military strategy game where you can...
That was cool, dude. Good shit. So we're definitely gonna have to check out this Jeremiah guy, more of his content. Again, his link is in the description below. Definitely follow him. He's clearly got some connects with some great footage. A couple things I wanted to mention. I think the dynamics and the difficulty of an operation like that is super often misunderstood, and I mean, it's just, there's so many moving parts and so many things can go wrong. It's absolutely incredible they were able to, in my opinion, and that they were able to successfully take that oil rig. They're operating at night, right? They're absolutely in a weaker position as far as being directly underneath the rig, right? Plus, you have to climb a ladder, which means your hands are your combat ineffective while you're moving up the ladder. They lost a guy in the ocean as they were doing this, and then they were fighting a jet, an actual fighter jet, in a couple of dinghies. And all that said, it sounds like they took a couple casualties, but no KIA, or if they did, they just didn't share it. Pretty badass, dude. I mean, that's some straight up Navy SEAL shit right there. That is very cool. We've seen a handful of really high tier operating units like this, and whatever GER unit this is, I'm sure they have a call sign for their actual unit. They're obviously very well trained. That was badass. Check Jeremiah out. Link in the description below. Also, if you are on your way to Ukraine, you plan on joining the Legion, I implore you, hit me up first, or at least check out the link to Hatia down below. I got to be careful about what I say here on this platform, because I don't want to disparage anything regarding the Legion, right? I don't want to say anything too negative about it, but I just want to reiterate how dangerous it is right now, and it's they're undergoing a lot of changes, and some organization is changing. Just check out fucking Hot Dia, man. Trust. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next video.